start. Okay. Okay, so everybody should be able to see that. Give me a thumbs up if you can see that, please. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Right, first of all, I hope that you're all well. I hope you've enjoyed the summer. We are very excited to have you and the children back in the academy. So we're very much looking forward to that. So over the summer, of course, we've been working very hard, very closely with KHDA and various authorities to make sure that we are, as an academy, safe to open, and we've got a good plan in place. So we'll go through that today. But just on the first page here, just want to make sure that you kind of know the faces that you might need to know. So Nathan Sadler's our new principal, for example, and then we go through our vice principals. Me, I'm Mr. Tiley, I'm the assistant principal of year 3 and 4. And then we have Victoria Twigger, she's the head of year 4. Okay, so any questions can be directed to any of us. I'm more than happy to answer any questions at any time, and my email address is later on in this presentation. Okay. So during this session then, what we're going to discuss is we are going to discuss the planning process for reopening. So the steps that we've taken as an academy, parent communication, our safety precautions and procedures, of course. So things around drop off, pick up, things like that. Our year group specific logistics and details, so things specific for year 4. We'll have a brief look at the curriculum and what we'll be providing for your children. Procedures for if we do have any cases or symptoms of COVID or any confirmed cases. And then at the end, we'll go through some FAQs. So if you, or when you completed the form to sign up, and if you did input some questions, hopefully at the very end of this session, I will cover those questions. Okay, so instead of bombarding Miss Henretti now on the chat with your questions, please just allow me a little bit of time to cover some of the content that we're going to go through. And hopefully you'll find that I answer a lot of your questions anyway. And if you still have questions after this presentation, like I say, you can email me anytime. Okay, right, so here we go. So the planning process then, so as you can imagine, it's been a lengthy process. We had a document from KHDA. We had to then, as an academy, create our own reopening plan. And then that had to be approved by KHDA. So that did take some time, but as soon as that was approved by KHDA, you received the letter. You can see it in the bottom right corner of your screen there. You received that letter from Mr. Sadler outlining kind of briefly how we'll be opening and things like that. So we have shared information with you as soon as physically possible. Okay, so the communication then, so you've had that letter. Next on the pictures there, you can see is the Zoom session, which is what we're doing now. There are a number of other things to come and that will be shared with you. First is a welcome back video. That's going to be for your children. It's a really nice video that will be shared with you very soon. And it just shows kind of what it will look like when they come back. What will it look like coming into the building? What do they have to do and things like that. So hopefully that will reassure yourselves and your children. That will be sent very soon. There is a COVID-19 parent handbook being put together as well. So that will also be coming to parents, and that outlines all of our processes and procedures and things like that. So that will be coming to you very soon as well. On top of that, something that we don't normally do, but we're having a meet the teacher session. So when you find out, which will be today, you'll find out your child's class teacher and which class they will be in. There is going to be opportunity. So your teacher will be in contact with you before the official start date for the children. They'll be in contact with you, and you will be able to arrange either a Zoom meeting or come into the academy and have that one-to-one meeting with the teacher. Okay, so these are the steps and the parent communication that we are putting in place to try and make this transition back to the academy slightly easier. Okay, so moving on then. So how do we keep our students safe? So as mentioned, we've worked very closely with the KHDA and we are following best practice, and all of this has been okayed and agreed from the KHDA. Okay, so first of all, we'll look at drop off. We are going to have 2 thermal cameras in the primary building. Anyone entering the building at all, so that students and parents, will need to pass through the thermal camera. If they have a temperature of 37.5 or above, they will not be allowed in the building. There will be a cooling off area Okay, so it might just be that you're really hot from walking from the car or from the car park or things like that. So they'll be given 5–10 minutes to cool down. But if that temperature remains, they won't be allowed in the academy for health and safety reasons, as you can imagine. The 2 cameras are going to be one in the main reception. Okay, that's going to be the entrance for most students. Then the other camera is going to be at the back of the building, which is going to be for the students who are taking the bus and coming in the back entrance. Okay, so everybody else is going to be passing through reception. To make the foot traffic a little bit easier, we are having staggered start times, and I'll come to start times for year 4 in a little while, but we are staggering that. So for example, FS are coming in at slightly different times, things like that, just to decrease the number of students entering the school and walking around at the same time. There's going to be a one-way system around the school to avoid people passing each other in corridors. There are going to be 2-meter markers on the corridors to remind the WSO community and parents and children just to keep their distance. Masks are mandatory for anyone 6 years and above. So that, obviously, that is year 4. So all year 4 students and everyone in the building, they are going to have to be wearing a mask. Okay, so everyone in year 4 will have masks on. So it's slightly different with drop-off for the FS to year 2. So FS to year 2, they can be escorted into the building by 1 adult. Okay, but year 3, year 4, year 5, and year 6, we are expecting, or children are going to be required to make their own way to the classroom. So you will drop your child at the gates or at the front door near reception, and then they will make their own way to class. Okay. I know that there's going to be a lot of questions. There were yesterday from some parents about dropping children off, especially on the first day, and you would like to do that and things. We totally understand. As a parent myself, I would want to do the same. However, we do need to reduce the amount of people for health and safety. We need to reduce the amount of people in the academy. And years 3, 4, 5, and 6 are more than capable to get to class by themselves. There are going to be so many staff as well to support the children, especially during that first week. Okay. Sanitizing stations are on all corridors, and they are either within or directly outside every single classroom. Okay, so we've made sure that we have plenty of those. There's hundreds of those around the academy. So in class then, when your children get to class, students are going to be divided into smaller groups to support social distancing. So we're calling those the bubbles. They won't be any more than 14 children in one classroom. But again, I will come on to that in a little while. So if you have any questions about that, I will cover that in more detail. Students will keep a distance of 1.5 meters between themselves and other students. Okay, so classrooms will be set up differently to in previous years. They will have their own desk and things like that. Students will be reminded regularly and supported to wash and sanitize their hands. Regarding toilets, students will be using the toilets that are in the corridors. However, we are going to have a member of staff based at each toilet, and the toilets are going to be cleaned after every single use. I already mentioned the masks, so all year 4 students will be required to wear masks at all times, as well as, of course, all staff. Classrooms will have a deep clean and they'll be sterilized every day. The toys, resources, anything like that. So we're talking any resources that are in the classroom. First of all, in year 4, they're not going to be shared. There's going to be no shared resources, okay? But anything that the children might touch is going to be sterilized after each use, and then a deep clean of the whole room will be done every day. Students are going to have their own pack of resources, which they won't share with other students. So on their table, they're going to have their own table because they'll be socially distanced. They'll have their own pack of resources. There will be an equipment list coming to you today, okay, of what they're going to need to bring to school. But they won't be sharing any resources. They will have an area to put all their things, and that's it, is theirs. Any materials or textiles have been removed from the school, so things like sand trays or carpets. So you'll notice in the year 4 classrooms, there's going to be no carpets and things like that. Anything that can't be deep cleaned on a daily basis has been removed. Students will have their lunch in the classrooms and at their designated table, which means that they will be maintaining that 1.5 meter distance. They're going to stay in their classroom the whole time they're in school. The only exception for this is when they go to PE. Okay, all other specialist lessons are going to be taking place in their classroom. So this reduces the amount of children walking around. They will be in their classroom, in their bubble, and they will not be moving around the academy very often at all. Once the weather is cooler, of course, we want to get the children outside and running around. But at the moment, we can't do that. It's slightly too warm. But when it cools down, they will be going outside, but they will remain in their bubble. For pickup time, there are going to be allocated zones around the academy. These will be outside. So the teacher or the teaching assistant will bring the class down to you. So parents, you will be given, closer to the time, you will be given a zone where you have to go and stand, and it will be outside the academy. It will be within the academy gates, but outside the building. Okay, so you will have to then go and wait there. Then the teacher or the teaching assistant will bring the students down. Okay, once they're down, you can then take your child home, which means that you do need to be on time, please, collecting your students. So again, we'll come to the times very soon, but the timing for that is 2:50. So 2:50, exactly the same as it was in year 3. You need to be there ready to take your child, okay? We will, of course, stay with them until you arrive, okay? We won't leave them by themselves, okay? Staying home then if unwell. We do have a strict staying home if unwell policy. We do ask parents, or we are asking parents, to check their child's temperature before bringing them to school, just to reduce any risks. But again, they will be checked before they come in the building anyway. A student showing any symptoms will have to be taken to the clinic, and we'll come to that in a second. If your child takes the bus, or if you're intending for them to take the bus, STS are going to be running a bus service, but at half capacity. There will be seating markers, and all staff have had training. There's going to be temperature checks before they get on board the bus. If there is a temperature of above 37.5, they will not be allowed on the bus. High standards of bus hygiene will be kept. So that means all seats, seat belts, armrests, handles, rails, everything on the bus that the children are likely to touch, or anyone's likely to touch, will be cleaned and sanitized before your children get onto the bus. So if you are planning for your children to get the bus, they will be cleaned regularly. So year 4 specific information then. So I'm sure you will have heard that the younger year group, so from FS to year 2, they are in school 100% of the time. Unfortunately, we don't have the space, we don't have the capacity to have all students in the academy 100% of the time. So it's important for us to kind of prioritize the students who aren't independent enough to do remote learning. Okay, so that's why year 3 to 6 will be in 50% of the time. This will work on an alternate day system. So it'll be one day in school, one day outside of school, and it will be on a 2-week rota. So week 1 and week 2. You can see on the screen there in bold, it says week 1, A, B, A, B, A, and week 2, B, A, B, A, B. So the groups are just underneath that. You can see the Emerald and Diamond classes are going to be group A. So Emerald and Diamond classes, if you look at week 1, they will be in the first day, which is Sunday, they'll be in Tuesday, and they'll be in Thursday. Okay, and then the following week after that, they will just be in 2 days. They'll be in on the Monday and the Wednesday. Okay, all Ruby and Onyx classes are group B. Class sizes are going to be capped at 27 students, with each class having a teacher and teaching assistant. So for the days that the students are on site, their class will be split into 2, like I said earlier, bubbles, with a maximum of 14. Okay, so they'll be split in half. They will have 2 classrooms per class. One will have 14, one will have 13, and the teacher and the TA will alternate between those 2 groups. During remote learning days, so when your child is at home, there will be a combination of asynchronous and synchronous learning taking place, just as there was in term 3. And they will also be using things like Zoom, not MS Teams at the moment in year 4, but it will be, the majority will be on Zoom and Seesaw. The location of the year groups has changed, but year 4 is remaining along the same corridor as it's always been, and that will be on the 2nd floor. Okay, there'll be plenty of staff, like I said, to help students get there in the morning. So here's just an example of what it will look like. There will be 2 classrooms for every class, and the teacher and the TA will alternate between the 2. The class teacher is still responsible for planning all lessons, delivering all lessons as usual, but the TA is just there to support, as they always do, support the learning, and just help the children where needed. Okay, so this might be the case of the teacher is delivering maybe an input session in one class, and maybe the children in the other class, have been given a different task to do, like a elicitation task or something like that. So, and then when the teacher can alternate between the two. Okay, so the teacher will be doing the majority of, well, all of the teaching, and the TA will be there to support, same as always. Students will stay within their bubble. Only the teacher and TA will move between. They will keep their social distance of 1.5 meters. Specialist teachers will come to the class to deliver lessons, and they will be keeping their distance as well. Okay. So I said that we'd briefly talk about the curriculum. There's going to be a huge focus on well-being, personal, emotional skills, things like that. We realized that this past year, or however many months it's been now, has been very difficult and very different for our children. So there's going to be a lot of well-being lessons, and teachers will support on a personal and social level and emotional level as well. So there's going to be a big focus on that, which I think will certainly be needed when the children return. But they are going to, or it says year 3 there, I apologize, they are going to have access to the year 4 curriculum. So the curriculum for year 3 and year 4 is remaining the same, including specialist lessons, but they will just be doing the lessons will be adapted because they will be doing it in class. The only exception, like I mentioned earlier, will be PE, where the students will go to the PE space. Okay. The classroom teacher will be using Classroom Monitor to assess your child, exactly the same as every other year. Okay. So school timings and sibling provision. So the school timings for year 4 then are 7:25. The drop-off can be between 7:25 and 7:45. Okay, so that's a slightly larger window to normal. But as it gets closer to the time, your teacher will, when the teacher has created the bubbles and things like that, your teacher will give each bubble a 10-minute slot to try and come in. Now, I understand that, oh, could you mute your microphone, please? Thank you very much. I understand that it's quite difficult in the mornings with traffic and things like that, but you'll be given a 10-minute window where ideally you would come into school then. That means that the amount of children in the corridor is just reduced in the morning. Okay, so you will be given a specific time for your family to arrive at class, but they can arrive anytime between 7:25 and 7:45. Pickup time is 2:50, like I said. If you have another child that is in an older year group, so year 5 or year 6 or in secondary, there will be a sibling club, same as normal, but that will be done in their class, in their bubble. Okay, but that's only an option if there is a sibling in the school, an older sibling in the school. So all class teachers will be ready to welcome them from 7:20, like I said. So from 7:20, that is, I know that's slightly earlier, but the reason for that is we are not going to have children waiting on the corridor. As soon as they come into the academy, they will go upstairs, they will go straight to their classroom. Okay, so no children waiting in the corridor. So the reason why 7:20, it's slightly earlier, that gives the siblings time to drop off if needed. Okay, if your children are in different houses, I understand that might be a bit of an issue now if they're coming into school on different days. We can change the house of your children if needed. So please just let me know. My email address is there. It's again, my email address is later in the presentation as well, but you can drop me an email and we can move. So for example, if you have a child in Ruby and Emerald, they won't be in school on the same day, which would mean it make life maybe more difficult for yourselves. So we can move them to make sure they're in the same house or at least in school on the same day. Okay, so COVID procedures then. So COVID-19. So if symptoms are displayed in the class teacher is responsible to refer students with COVID-19 symptoms. There's a list of symptoms there. You can see coughs, body aches, fatigue, shortness of breath, sore throat, runny nose, diarrhea, nausea, headache, any of those things. We are going to have to, the class teacher is responsible to then send them to the clinic if required. An adult will be called and they will be able to take the student down to the clinic. There will be first aid trained teachers and teaching assistants and different staff around the academy, members of our leadership team as well. Many of us are first aid trained. So if there is a minor injury, little bumps, little cuts, little scrapes, we are qualified and will be able to deal with that, okay, on the academy, on the corridors. So we are trying to reduce the amount of children that are going to the clinic for any of the symptoms listed above there. So if a child or teacher or anyone in the academy begins to show symptoms of COVID-19, they must get isolated instantly, and the parent or guardian of the child will be notified immediately, and the patient should be referred to the hospital to take the necessary action. We do have designated isolation rooms within the academy, and you will be informed straight away, okay, to come and collect your child. As per guidelines, parents will have to collect their child from the clinic. This will have to be done as soon as possible. If you are not able to get there, or if we cannot contact you, anything like that, an ambulance will have to be called, and then your child will have to go into the ambulance. For those reasons, then we do stress highly that if you think your child may be a little bit sick, if your child may be a little bit sick, or if they're having any of those symptoms, please do keep them at home, okay? Also, please make sure that your contact details are up to date on the parent portal. If we need to reach you, if your child is showing one of those symptoms, we need to be able to contact you. So please make sure on the portal, your phone numbers are up to date. After being sent home, the patient should not return to school until they have a COVID test. If the result is negative and there is a clinical assessment of a probable COVID-19, so even if they're still showing symptoms, the child should then complete a 14-day quarantine, okay? Even if they have that negative test, if they are still having symptoms, they should complete the quarantine. If the result is negative and there is no clinical assessment for a probable cause, a probable case, so sorry, somebody is writing on the screen. Could we make sure that we're not doing that, please? Thank you very much. If the result is negative and there's no, so they have no symptoms, they can resume schooling as long as they're symptom free. Okay. If the result is positive, the traced contacts of the patient, so we will find out who they've been in contact with, and everyone will be notified. And there will be a quarantine day, like 14-day quarantine counting from the day of the positive test, okay? And this, like I said, there will be a handbook coming out with all of this as well for more information for you. So if your child's class are having to quarantine for 14 days, it says, how will they access the learning? We're very lucky in Key Stage 2, the children are very good at accessing Seesaw and things like that independently. So all that would happen is they would move to 100% remote learning for those 14 days. So they would just carry on as normal. And then after the 14 days, they would move back to the 50%. If your child has to quarantine for 14 days, but their classmate don't, this may happen, okay? For example, they may have been in contact with somebody with a confirmed case outside of the academy. If anything like that does happen, your child will complete the 14-day quarantine. That's fine. They would just do 100% remote learning, and we would make sure that we provide that, okay? All staff are being trained on this. We have designated health and safety members around the academy to handle any emergency situations as well. There are very clear and strict protocols and procedures that have been created, and they will be shared in the parent handbook. Okay, 100% remote learning options. So Mr. Sadler, in his letter that he sent out a while ago now, he gave that as an option and parents signed up for that. So we are offering this. At the moment, we're about 80% of students, over 80% coming into the academy 50% of the time, which is fantastic. We'd love to have our students back and see them. But if you aren't comfortable yet and you have opted for the 100% remote learning, that's fine. There will actually be an email coming to you today from myself. In that will have a couple of forms for you to read, sign, and send back to me. But this is how it will work. This is just a brief overview of how it will work. There's a scenario there. If Ibrahim is in 4A and has opted for 100% remote learning, his timetable would be this. So he would actually join two classes. He'd have a main class, which is 4A, and then he would take part with 4A whilst his class are remote learning. But then whilst his class are coming into school, he would then join another class. So he would be paired maybe with 4F. So whilst 4F are remote learning, he would join them. So it's kind of like he has two teachers and he would alternate between those. But the class teacher of his main class, 4A, would be responsible for assessment, reporting, feedback, things like that. Of course, the teacher of 4A and 4F would have to work very closely together to make sure that we are providing everything that Ibrahim needs, and that's not a problem at all, okay? So, and then if he decides to come back to school, he can join at any time in line with the parent contract that you'll need to sign, but there's only a 5-day notice period. So if you decide, after a few weeks, if you're more comfortable and with how everything's being managed, or COVID-19 in Dubai, then you can change your mind at any time and your children can come back to school. Okay, so we're nearly finished. Frequently asked questions then. If your child receives SEND support, so for example, if they have a one-to-one adult, like a learning support assistant, then Miss Macaulay will have already been in touch with you with further information. If they receive, sorry, somebody's writing on the screen there. Apologies for that. If your child receives level 2 support in class, then this will be discussed with your inclusion teacher. There is support available there, okay, and that will be discussed with you. If you want your child to have 100% remote learning, then hopefully you've already filled out that document. If you didn't, and you do want your child to have 100% remote learning, could you please email me that as soon as possible? Okay, and I will add you onto the list, and you will receive an email from me today. If you need to change your child's house, like I mentioned earlier, because their sibling is in a different house and they won't be in school on the same day, again, that's fine. Please do email me and let me know, and we can arrange that. If your child is under 6, which won't be any one of you, but if you have another child that is under 6 and you want them to wear a mask, again, that is completely your choice and that's not a problem. If there is another national spike in COVID-19 numbers, is the school prepared? Yes, like I said earlier, we will just revert back to 100% remote learning. Okay, so we are fully prepared in case that does happen. Will students keep a 1.5 meter distance? Of course, that's going to be hard for students at first. However, we are going to support the students. We're going to talk to them, we're going to teach them, model to them exactly kind of how we can go about doing that. The classrooms are going to be set up to support this as well. And the children, if we've learned anything during this time, is that our children are very, very resilient and they pick up new things and practices very, very quickly and very easily. So I'm sure they will adapt very quickly. And then the final question is, will there be big group events in school? Unfortunately not. So things like assemblies and theatre productions, things like that, they won't be able to go ahead at first, of course, because we can't do social distancing during events like that, which is very sad. However, we just need to be looking forward and looking ahead to and excited for when those events do return, which they will after some time. Okay. So finally, then, I just want to thank you for your time today. I do hope that that's kind of reassured you and given you an insight into some of the procedures that are in place to keep your children safe. As mentioned, you will be receiving regular communication from us over the next few weeks. Today, including today, you'll find out your child's class teacher and which class they'll be in. Feel free to reach out using my email address. It's just there underneath my picture. So feel free to email me anytime and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so that is it from the presentation side. I don't know if there's a few more questions that need to be answered. I can see there's 74 chats. Thank you so much for your time. If you're not waiting for a question to be answered, you can leave the chat now, but stay safe. I look forward to seeing you and your children very soon. If you have any questions specific to you and your family, again, just drop me an email. Okay, thank you so much for your time and I look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye, everybody.